Okay, so picture this. You're sitting at your kitchen table. Maybe it's a Sunday night. Maybe you've got a half-eaten bowl of whatever in front of you, and you open up your banking app, not because you need to. More like you're just checking. Again. Like somehow the number is going to be different from the last time you looked 3 hours ago. And it's not bad exactly. You're not in debt, you're covering your bills, you've maybe got a little saved up, but you're also not there yet. You know the number I'm talking about, that first big one. The comma that changes the way you think about yourself, the way you walk into a room, honestly the way you sleep at night, $100,000. And you keep doing the math. If I save this much per month, carry the one 5 years, 6, and something just feels off about that timeline, like there has to be a better way, there has to be something you're missing. My name is Josh, and I spend probably an embarrassing amount of time thinking about money. Not in a Wall Street, spreadsheet-obsessed kind of way, but more like I'm genuinely fascinated by the psychology of it. Why some people seem to hit that first 100,000 in their mid-20s like it's nothing, while other people, smart people, hard-working people, are still grinding toward it at 40. And what I've found after years of reading, researching, and honestly just making my own financial mistakes is that it almost never comes down to income. Almost never. It comes down to a handful of things that nobody really talks about clearly, and that's what we're going to get into today. Because I think by the end of this, the way you see that first 100,000 is going to shift. Not in a motivational poster kind of way. More in a, oh, I've been thinking about this completely wrong kind of way. Which in my experience is the only kind of shift that actually makes a difference. So let's talk about it. Here's the thing they don't tell you when you're starting out. The journey to your first $100,000 is genuinely different from every other financial milestone you'll hit after it. Like fundamentally, structurally different. And most people don't know that, so they approach it the same way they'd approach saving up for a vacation, just longer, more painful, and then they wonder why it feels so hard. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's longtime business partner, guy who lived to be 99 and seemed to get sharper every decade, he said something once that I think about all the time. He said the first $100,000 is a bad, but you have to do it. And I love that because coming from one of the most disciplined, intelligent investors who ever lived, that's basically him saying, yeah, this part is just hard. It's not a sign you're doing it wrong. It's the nature of the thing. And why is it so hard, psychologically? Because at this stage, your money isn't really working for you yet in any meaningful way. You put $1,000 into an index fund earning, let's say, 10%, which historically is a pretty reasonable average. And at the end of the year, you've got $1,100. Great, useful, but also, you could have just picked up a couple extra shifts and gotten there faster. The math doesn't feel inspiring yet. The compounding engine is running, but it's running at like a quarter of its power. So what happens? People get demoralized. They check their investment account. They see the gains and they think, that's it? And they stop contributing, or they dip into it, or they just get bored and spend the money on something that gives them a faster dopamine hit. And that's the trap. That's the thing that keeps people stuck. The mindset shift that actually moves the needle. You have to stop treating this stage as a financial challenge and start treating it as a psychological one. Your one job right now is to keep the machine running. Feed it. Don't touch it. Keep going. The math will catch up. It always does. But only for the people who stay in the game long enough for it to matter. All right, let me say something that might be a little uncomfortable. If you're trying to hit $100,000 in savings while making $32,000 a year, that's going to be a very, very long road. Not impossible, but long. And I'm not saying that to crush anyone's spirit. I'm saying it because I think we do people a disservice when we act like budgeting alone is the answer. There is a ceiling on how much you can cut. You can only trim expenses so far before you're just making yourself miserable. But there is theoretically no ceiling on how much you can earn, and that distinction matters. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Easier said than done, Jamie, and you're right, sort of. But let me push back a little because I think a lot of people, myself included honestly at certain points, dramatically underestimate how much room they have to grow their income. Not by getting lucky, not by starting some viral business, just by being strategic about it. Here's a pattern I've seen over and over. Someone gets a job out of college or trade school or wherever, they're making a decent starting wage, and then they just stay. They get comfortable. They get their 2% raise every year. They feel vaguely underpaid, but also vaguely grateful. And 3 years pass, then 5. And they're still in that same zone, wondering why the 100,000 feels so far away. The people who hit that milestone fastest, they treat their income like it's a project. They're constantly asking, what's the next level? What skill can I build in the next 6 months that makes me worth 20% more? What's the market paying for this role at a different company? They're not disloyal or mercenary about it. They just understand that in most industries, the biggest salary jumps come from moving, not waiting. I had a friend, and this is true, who stayed at his first job for 4 years out of loyalty. He genuinely liked his boss. When he finally left, he got a 40% raise, 40%, for doing essentially the same job. And his boss, to the guy's credit, basically told him he should have left 2 years earlier. The point isn't that you should job hop carelessly. The point is that your income trajectory is one of the most powerful levers you have, especially in the early stages. Saving matters. Cutting expenses matters. But if you can also add even $500 to $1,000 more per month to your income, the compounding math becomes dramatically more exciting to look at. Suddenly that timeline shrinks from 6 years to 3. Suddenly the finish line feels real. Okay, so you're making more money. Or you're working toward it. Great. But here's the part where a lot of people, even people with pretty solid incomes, still stumble. And it's this: the gap. The gap between what you earn and what you spend. That's it. That's the whole game at this stage. The gap is your army. The gap is what you're sending into the market every month to fight for you. And the sneaky, frustrating thing about lifestyle inflation is that it's designed to close that gap quietly, without you really noticing. You get a raise. You move into a slightly nicer apartment. You upgrade the car. You start eating out a little more because, hey, you earned it. And suddenly the raise isn't a raise at all. It's just a lifestyle adjustment. The gap didn't grow. It stayed exactly the same, maybe even shrank a little. I'm not here to tell you that you should live like a monk. That's boring advice and also just bad for your mental health. But I do think there's this concept, I think about it as the inflation gap, where you give yourself permission to let your lifestyle creep up by, say, 30% of every raise. But you protect the other 70. It goes directly to savings or investments before you even get a chance to feel like you have it. That framing helped me a lot because it's not, you can never enjoy more money. It's, you get to enjoy some of it and build real wealth simultaneously, which is the sustainable version, the version that doesn't make you resent your own savings plan 6 months in. And the really powerful thing, once your invested assets start growing to a meaningful size, once you're in that $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 range, the gap you've been maintaining starts to get help. Your portfolio starts contributing. A $100,000 portfolio earning 10% a year is dropping $10,000 into your lap annually, doing nothing. That's almost $1,000 extra dollars a month, generated entirely by math, by past decisions you made while sitting at your kitchen table with a half-eaten bowl of something. All right, this is the part I really want people to hear, because I think it's one of the most practical, underrated, unsexy things you can do to accelerate this whole journey. And it's just this: where you put your money matters almost as much as how much you save. Most people have a checking account and maybe a savings account. Maybe a 401k through work that they signed up for during onboarding and haven't thought about since. And that's okay. But it's leaving real money on the table. Here's what I mean. If you're not maxing out your employer's 401k match first before you do anything else, that is free money you are actively refusing. An employer that matches 50% of your contributions up to 6% of your salary is giving you a guaranteed 50% return on that portion of your savings. Guaranteed. You cannot beat that anywhere. Not in crypto, not in individual stocks, nowhere. Start there. Then, depending on your situation, whether you're in a higher or lower tax bracket right now, you're looking at either a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA. The Roth in particular is kind of magical for people in their 20s and early 30s because you contribute money that's already been taxed, it grows completely tax-free, and you pull it out in retirement without owing the government a cent. Your future self will be so grateful for this, like genuinely. And then beyond that, a regular taxable brokerage account for money that doesn't need to be locked up until retirement. Broad index funds, low fees, boring, effective. None of this is glamorous. None of it is going to make a great story at a dinner party. But this structure, 401k match, then Roth, then taxable brokerage, basically acts like a series of rivers all flowing toward the same sea. And that sea is your first 100,000, and then your first million. But we'll save that conversation for another day. Here's where things get a little more interesting and also a little more personal. Because I've been talking about a lot of foundational stuff, mindset, income, the gap, account structure. All of that is true and important. But I also want to talk about something I think of as asymmetric moves. Because this is honestly one of the things that separates the people who hit 100,000 in 3 years from the people who take 8. An asymmetric move is any action where the upside is significantly larger than the downside. And in personal finance, these show up in ways that aren't always obvious. For example, skills that pay exponentially. Spending 6 months learning a high-demand technical skill, coding, data analysis, digital marketing, sales, can fundamentally change your income in a way that takes years of normal career progression to replicate. The investment is time. The return can be a 50% income jump. That is a wildly asymmetric outcome. Side income with low overhead. I don't mean start a business in the big scary way. I mean, is there something you already know how to do that other people would pay for? Consulting on evenings and weekends? Freelancing in your field? Teaching something? The people I've talked to who built wealth fastest almost all had some version of a second income stream at some point, not because they were grinding themselves into the ground, but because they found something that required relatively low ongoing effort once it got going. Negotiating everything, your salary, yes, but also your rent, your insurance, your subscription services. I know someone who saved nearly $2,000 a year just by spending an afternoon calling every service provider they had and asking for a better rate. Most said yes, some didn't. The conversation took maybe 3 hours total. That's a pretty good hourly rate for 3 hours of mildly awkward phone calls. Geographic arbitrage. This one's a bit bigger, but if you're in a city with a sky-high cost of living and your job is remote, or you can make it remote, moving to a lower cost of living area can do in 1 year what income increases would take 3 years to achieve. Uncomfortable thought? Maybe. Powerful lever? Absolutely. You don't have to take every asymmetric bet. But I think the mental exercise of asking, where's the move that has a small downside and a disproportionately big upside, is one of the most productive financial questions you can regularly sit with. I want to talk about something that I think doesn't get discussed enough, which is what happens psychologically right before people reach this goal. Because there's this weird phenomenon, and I've seen it, I've experienced it myself in different contexts, where the closer you get to a big milestone, the more anxious and impatient you become. Not more motivated, more anxious. You're at 87,000. You've been building this for years. You're so close, and suddenly you start making weird decisions. You take on more risk than you should in your investments because you want to get there faster. You pull money out of savings for something that honestly could have waited. Or on the flip side, you become so scared of messing it up that you get paralyzed and stop making moves altogether. Both of those are the finish line doing something strange to your brain. And the antidote, as far as I can tell, is just knowing it's coming. Knowing that the last stretch of any big goal has a particular kind of psychological weight. It's the home stretch on a long run. You can see the end, your legs feel the heaviest they've felt the whole time, and your body is begging you to stop. The people who finish are the ones who recognize that feeling as part of the process, not as a signal to stop. Also, and I think this is worth saying, the $100,000 milestone is genuinely meaningful, but it's also somewhat arbitrary. The real prize isn't the number. The real prize is the machine you've built, the habits, the account structure, the income growth, the investing discipline. The 100,000 is proof that the machine works. After that, the machine gets faster. The gap compounds. The decisions you've been practicing get more automatic, and the next milestone, whatever it is for you, comes faster than the first. That's not just something I say to make the goal feel more approachable. It's literally what the math shows. Getting from 0 to 100,000 typically takes longer than getting from 100,000 to 200,000, even if you don't change a single thing. The compounding is just getting warmer. So let me bring this back to where we started. You, Sunday night, kitchen table, checking the app again. The reason that moment feels so frustrating isn't because you're failing. It's because you're doing the early, hard part, the part that feels slowest, feels most invisible, feels most like nothing is working. And you're doing it without a clear map of what this actually requires. What it requires, as best I can tell, it requires you to reframe this as a psychological challenge before it's a math challenge. It requires you to take your income seriously as a lever, not just your expenses. It requires you to protect the gap and build the right account structure. It requires you to look for asymmetric moves, the small bets with outsized upside, without gambling your stability on long shots. And it requires you to understand that the closer you get, the weirder your brain gets, and to keep going anyway. None of this is complicated. Almost none of it is fast, but it is doable. And the people who do it, the ones who actually hit that number, who look at their account one Tuesday morning and see a comma they've never seen before, most of them aren't special. They're not geniuses or trust fund kids or crypto lottery winners. They're people who understood the game and played it consistently, usually for less time than they thought they'd need to. You can be one of those people, probably faster than you think. All right, that's it for today. If something here landed for you, or if there's a part of your own financial journey you're trying to figure out, drop it in the comments, like the video, also subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you in the next one.